here, but some people can't get outdoors anymore. A lot of the ways that we used to be able to relieve some of the stresses. And besides COVID phobia, I think that's Lenore, we've also got infodemics and syndemics and multiple, yeah. So during this year, we've been piling on all kinds of other forms of pandemics, climate change, all kinds of things, political changes. So that what we want to do, we're looking at the bodies, is find ways to really regroup, find our own resilience, keep working, keep a positive attitude. So today's roundtable is going to feature a somatic and a way of working with nature and the elements to really bring back resilience. Jamie McHugh, are you ready to start?
Yes. Hello, wherever you are in the world. I'm in Mendocino, California. And one of our focuses today, besides compassion fatigue, is also resilience and nature. So, first, we are nature. Simply by tuning in to our somatic selves is a way to enter into nature. We also have outer nature, our larger body. And how does the inner nature and the outer nature come together? My specialization is really, besides the somatic arts, the creative arts. And that's one of my connections with Dr. Serlin, is through looking how the arts can nourish and support us in thinking in new ways. Right? Our metaphoric minds are just as important as our rational minds. So today, I'm going to take you on a simple little journey so that we can all just kind of relax into ourselves, take the pressure off, and dream a little bit. And I'm going to do this in two ways. One is with words from poets and spiritual teachers, as well as some visuals of the natural world, which is my particular aesthetic practice, which keeps me sane. And it's also a way for me to connect to the natural world in a different way and share that vibration with people in the world. So the first thing we're going to do is I'd like you to turn off your cameras so we can all go into our own domain. And I'm going to do mine too. And that way, you can dream, you can relax, you can move however you wish. And I am going to share my screen here. And enter full screen. And there we go. So the first, most simple practice I want to introduce you to is the ah breath. And so as we go on this journey, please join me in simply taking 3 ahs. And the ah goes like breathing in through the nose and releasing your breath. Breathing in through your nose, releasing your breath. And one final, and then a long, slow ah. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and scared. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down the dulcimer. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. The 13th century poet, Persian poet Rumi. Whenever we touch nature, we get clean. People who have got dirty through too much civilization take a walk in the woods or a bath in the sea. They shake off the fetters and allow nature to touch them. It can be done within or without. Walking in the woods, lying on the grass, taking a bath in the sea are from the outside. Entering the unconscious, entering yourself through dreams, is touching nature from the inside. And this is the same thing. Things are put right again. Carl Jung. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing, and gave it up, and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. Mary Oliver. I like to live in the sound of water, in the feel of mountain air. A sharp reminder hits me. This world is still alive. It stretches out there shivering towards its own creation, and I'm part of it. Even my breathing enters into this elaborate give and take, this bowing to sun and moon, day or night, winter, summer, storm, still. This tranquil chaos that seems to be going somewhere. This wilderness with a great peacefulness in it. This motionless turmoil. This everything dance. William Stafford. Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. Must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers. I have made this place around you. If you leave it, it may come back again, saying, here, no two trees are the same to raven, no two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows. Where you are, you must let it find you. David Wagner. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, not with a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I am alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune as motionless as an uprise of weeds until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unhearable sound of the roses singing. If you have ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much. Mary Oliver. Today, I'm flying low and I'm not saying a word. I'm letting all the voodoos of ambition sleep. The world goes on as it must. The bees in the garden rumbling a little. The fish leaping, the gnats getting eaten, and so forth. But I'm taking the day off. Quiet as a feather. I hardly move, though really I'm traveling a terrific distance. Stillness. One of the doors into the temple. Mary Oliver. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are walking back and forth through the door between the two worlds. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Thank you.
Noticing how we normally jump right back into speech and presentation mode. Let's not. Let's take 30 seconds and just sit quietly as we shift gears to the next presenter. Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm still in it. It was gorgeous. And I ask you now to give your attention to Dr. Eleanor Pardess, with whom I worked in Israel more than 10 years ago, who does amazing trauma work all over Israel, and is going to try to bring all of that work into 10 minutes presentation for all of us now, to give us a taste of some of what she's been doing and creating in Israel, her own model actually of working. Okay.
Thanks, Eileen. I'm glad to be here, and I'm going to talk about compassion fatigue and also ways of connecting to nature as a way not only to revitalize ourselves, but also to restore balance and open doors to our adjusting in new ways and creative ways, as Jamie suggested, to changing reality. So let me share. I'm going to first talk about compassion. Just a second. Do you have? Okay, there we are. Okay. So in the next 10 minutes, I will talk about the ABC as key awareness, balance, connection. I want to keep that in mind, of regeneration, balancing compassion for self and others. So first of all, the key terms. Let's begin with the word compassion. The Latin word for compassion is compati, okay, which means to suffer with. Actually, we are talking about the ways we relate to suffering, the ways of being with suffering. There's so much suffering. Compassion asks us to be with the suffering. It's not to turn away, to recognize, to be aware of fear, confusion, helplessness, powerlessness, the deep pain, loss, to open our hearts to the loneliness, not only of others, but also our own. Compassion cannot be without being aware. It is defined by awareness. Compassion is awareness of the suffering, and as well as the commitment to alleviate. Now that can be tricky because so often we take care of others at the expense of neglecting our own needs, emotional and physical and spiritual. And one way of understanding compassion fatigue is that loss of balance between taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. So we all know that we cannot pour water from an empty cup, and we do try to, and we keep trying. And also Jamie's presentation reminded me that of the phrase, the heart needs to pump blood to itself first. So back to compassion, there are 3 directions of compassion. My work is based on attachment perspective, compassion-focused therapy, as well as the more attachment-based ADP, EFT. And my research has been on compassion fatigue, together with my dissertation supervisor, then Professor Mario Mikolince and Phil Shaver. And I've been very fortunate to have really wonderful work together with also our later on compassion, self-compassion and resilience. Okay, so compassion really has these three directions. We can be compassionate from ourselves, the flow to others, compassion from others to us, that flow.
Eleanor, your PowerPoint's not on the screen. Is that what you want?
Yeah, it's okay, yes.
Okay.
Thanks. And the third, but it's on me. Yes, I feel it in me, and I just remembered. I think the best illustration was the fact that last time when I gave the lecture, I was just after the shot, and I had chills. And then Eleanor was, you were all very compassionate to how I was feeling lousy and I was lecturing, and then Eleanor suggested me talking to the chills, and I talked to the chills. So here was compassion from someone else to me. And that gave me the idea of being more compassionate for myself to myself, which is the third direction. Okay, compassion from self to self. So that is my illustration. I'll go back, but in the bottom line of this part, compassion does require us to be in touch with our vulnerability. And it, as Nguyen said, it really means full immersion in the condition of being human. In the condition of being human. That is our shared humanity. So I'm back to the PowerPoint. I was afraid to go to sleep after Jamie's. This is 9 o'clock. This is tricky. 7 o'clock, it's tricky to have such a presentation. So the fact that I'm not asleep after doing 2 trainings today, 1 workshop. So the fact that I'm not asleep after Jamie's presentation is so. We think of compassion fatigue as the cost of caring. There's a lot of key terms, different key terms, burnout, vicarious trauma. We can go on and on about the warning signs. And I think you all know about how important it is to recognize the warning signs. Our ABC, which is originally from Laurie Perlman and on vicarious trauma, we see as the compassion fatigue as an umbrella term, compassion fatigue term by the term coined by Figley, his pioneer and incredible work about caring for others and neglecting our own needs. So, and that exhaustion and getting losing ourselves while caring with others. So we want, in our model, we want, I'm talking only about, not on the part of trauma groups working with nature, with the bereaved families or with residents or mental health, but just now in this presentation, only about the work with healthcare teams and first responses in the context of COVID. So one of our questions would be, how do you bring yourself to yourself? Now, obviously, I chose this illustration not because of the forest bathing in Japan. We're not going there this evening right now, but we will try to find ways through the ABC. And I want you to notice as I walk through these illustrations, I want you to notice what comes up, what captures your attention. This is something we will do also in nature-based workshops outdoors, but also in the context of COVID over Zoom. And so when you experience, one of the ways we look at attention is not just attention to the warning signs, but attentions to how we feel in our bodies, the somatic sense, the felt sense that Jamie talked about, but also outward, inward, like you said, our nature, we are part. So we ask the simple question, where are your, what captures your attention? Where are your eyes drawn? Or in other words, where does your gaze land? Open attention, this could be moving through nature or even indoors. Bringing up that sense of awareness. And this is something, this illustration is one of the participants. This is what he noticed. I think I would have gone through that. It's right down the street. I would have probably not noticed, but this is what he noticed. So you can see the trunk and the regeneration. But what is important is his take. So we lift our gaze. Our gaze can go to the, to the ground, right in the buildings, up. And just see what happens as you go through the photos, as you went through Jamie's. What is there, what captures your attention that you can need for balancing care for self and others? So we're awareness and balance. How do we balance? Balance is not just in the traditional model ABC, it's balancing between personal lives and professional lives. Work, family balance. That's definitely so important. Eating well, sleeping well, balancing, keeping physical. However, what else do we need to nourish to balance ourselves, to keep ourselves centered, to restore balance? Roots provide anchorage, stability in weathering the storms of life. We talk about in the nature-based workshops, we have a lot of roots to resilience, regeneration, using analogies from metaphors from imagery, the power of imagery. There's not that much talking in these groups. We don't let too many words to interfere. Open space for sharing in a way that is safe. And the idea is safeness in the body. Just feeling that sense of safeness as building islands of security, the inner secure base, so that we can feel that stability as a base from which islands of security, islands of resilience, moving encounters. And the model is called moving because it's moving in relation to oneself, in relation to others, in relation to the world, in a movement. Trauma is a lot about being fixed. So here we are creating from that frozen, rigid, constricted state, finding new ways, opening new doors to connecting to others, to oneself, to others, to one's resources, to community, to nature, and to life. So you can see that this is a humanistic perspective together with the creative approaches and the attachment-based clinical practices, which nature is part of. Nature is also part of our clinical practice. It's whatever approach we have. So creativity, embodiment, and nature. The health benefits, I won't go into that, but if anyone wants to know about the scientific base for the importance of the health benefits of connecting to nature, you can look at Eric's right from the 80s, even knowing that a view through the window may influence recovery from surgery. So we have person window transactions, not only in hospitals, but also in our work. And in lockdown, it's so important. I mean, really, there's so much constriction and we need nature so much. So forest bathing is just one of the examples of why this work is so, I work all around the world with this. And, it's amazing to see gender, culture, how this is our common base of shared humanity, connection to life. And coming from Eric Fromm, biophilia is the passionate love of life and all that is alive. And this is a hospital where so you see the pictures, the nature hospital. This is not a mental health, but it is hematology. So this is not a COVID. And this is my sister, yes, which I wanted an inside look, but she sent me that this morning. And the idea was fabulous because she didn't mean it, but this is signs of vitality. So I love the stethoscope together with, so to end this discussion, this 10 minutes, so really we want to, the idea is to illustrate the power of these interventions in COVID, in connecting to what gives us life, to what gives us life, to what keeps us aware, ABC, A, awareness of signs of vitality. We're talking about burnout, but we need to be talking about engagement with ourselves, with lives. Also, of course, affective resonance, using that in our clinics, of course, as clinical practice, we need that. And nature is we see it as a agent of change. Actually, during COVID, I've been working so much in the garden. I have this clinic here, but most of my work, I have a clinic. I'm fortunate to have a lovely place in the garden. So I'm fortunate to have good weather most of the time. So, so it's amazing how nature has become a co-therapist in holding and holding myself. I really thought it was so strange for me to be working in the garden at the beginning, but I really got used to it. And I must be frank that coming back to working here, I discovered that sometimes I'm less focused than I was outside. So, you know, because people are here, they're getting, you know, second already the vaccination. So many people want to go back to, or you know, switching. So here we are, but also working. Many people are not fortunate to have space gardens, patio, so we can work indoors with, this is the avocado seed. I can tell you about that later, but you can see the seed Jamie talked about, this germinating force underneath the surface, which we cannot see. 2 weeks away, we talked about in the winter, you know, under the cover, under the snow, under there are seeds there waiting, and that is part of what we with therapists work with, trust in the process. So in some, here we are with roots and roots to resilience, regeneration. This is, you can find additional illustrations and toolkits and strategies in the chapter, in the book, and in the chapter I wrote about using nature, using metaphors with nature. And here is, you could just write for me if you want the research and the neuroscience research, or most of it is in Hebrew, but some of it, the work, the strategies. So I will be more than glad to share. So compassion is not complete if it doesn't include compassion for ourselves. Thank you. You're on mute.
Aha. We normally have a discussion after this. I said, thank you so much, Dr. Pardess. And as with the first, it's a little hard to talk after a beautiful journey. However, let's just take a moment, maybe tune in to ourselves and just notice our responses to both presentations. And in a moment, let's just have some reactions. How was it? Is this helpful for you at your work, at your everyday life, as a provider, as an experiencer of all the effects of COVID?
So first of all, thank you to the presenters for taking me on this wonderful internal journey. I'm reinforcing everything that I know about doing this kind of work, but bringing up such an incredible personal longing. I'm here in Boston, and it's quite cold outside, and we already have a lot of snow on the ground. So I sort of feel like I'm like a dog with my leash in my mouth, standing at the door, wagging my tail, waiting for somebody to please take me for a walk. So it brought up this intense longing for being outdoors and being in nature. So I don't know whether I should thank you for that, but that's what it did for me.
Great.
I haven't had a chance to introduce you at the beginning. May I?
Sure.
No? Dear friend and colleague, Dr. Vivian Marco Spicer, I used to teach with her at Lesley University in Boston. She was head of the Arts Institute, Creative Arts and Therapy. Now it's Arts and Health, I believe, but at Lesley University, very creative. We've worked in Israel and all over the world together. So she was able to join us today. Wonderful to have you. Thanks. Great.
I like some of the places that the two presentations intersected, and I thought of forest bathing and the forest knows. And I also ended up being drawn to the tree in the photograph that had also a recycling area. And I thought it was really interesting to feel how much I just wanted to be with that big tree, green tree. And then right to the side, there was this metaphor or reality of everything is regenerating or something, or recycling. So I was like starting to sort of feel like the foreground and the periphery like dancing together or something.
I came in the middle of Jamie's presentation. I must say that it was really wonderful. I particularly enjoyed the combination of the changing views, the where you manipulated the pictures and connected them with your talk. That was really wonderful. I would love to be able to just download those pictures and be able to go into them and look and follow with them if you have them somehow.
That particular slideshow I've made of my images I made last night, so I haven't uploaded it to Vimeo yet, but it will be uploaded to Vimeo, and with a lot of my visual work, I just kind of give it to the world for free. So I will send you a link and you can download that video and enjoy nature in your own environment.
I also want to thank you both for the tips on improving the Zoom quality of my participation in meetings. You can see I have a new camera and lights.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Jamie, lots of those pictures you took yourself, right?
They're all my images.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Yes. That's beautiful.
You know, one of the things for me that's really important with all of my students is to ask them to have their own personal aesthetic and creative practice as a way to, especially people who are involved in the helping professions. It's like we're talking about compassion fatigue and that kind of giving out and that holding space for others. And it's like how to use the metaphoric mind, the sensations and the deliciousness of our body responses and our aesthetic appreciation of the world to really regenerate ourselves. And those of you might be familiar with Richard Schusterman's idea of somesthetics, which I absolutely adore. Is that word somesthetics, is the bringing together of the soma, our own self-perception and our own practices that elevate our appreciation of the world so that the body is intrinsically related to an aesthetic appreciation of life. And so I always like to bring forward that idea that by having a creative practice for yourself, you continue to feed yourself. Or as I like to sometimes say, I visit my therapist 4 times a week. I go down to the ocean's edge and lie by the ocean and allow the waves to really listen to me, speak to me. And that's my primary source of nourishment, is the ocean's edge.
You know, one of the, I remember when I was reading Shusterman, that he emphasized as well that soma sex, that he picked a word because it shows that we also have our bodies connect to animals as well as nature, and that word would allow all those kinds of relationships to be equal and connected.
You know, Jamie, in my work, I use the word kinesthetic, which is the same. I love the fact that it has aesthetic right in there. And kinesis is the sensation of the moving muscles or the joints going. So I know where my arm is in space. I can get a sense of where I am in relation to the world around me. And my body is giving me, through the proprioceptive cells and all that, information all the time about where I am. And we've talked about Zoom fatigue. We lose a lot of that staring at a two-dimensional screen. And we've talked about also, I was tempted to say, wait, everybody, let's take our break and look up, you know, exercise your eyes, move, change direction. I was in a wonderful workshop, I'll just tell you this, about when the world looks upside down. So this was pairing with a yoga teacher. She actually had us do inversion poses, or legs up the wall, or a headstand. So you're actually looking at the world upside. Yes, the world feels upside down, but I can reorient myself in a different way, change my perception. So this whole thing, this is so important in psychology about changing your perception, but how? It's one thing to ask someone to do it just in thoughts, but if you actually change your position, practice changing your eyes, you really see the world differently. And that's so important when we get stuck in our kind of tunnel vision. We were talking about information on Zoom, information on Zoom. And it's like a one track. So this changing of perception is really important, and not just in our thoughts, but the body helps the mind change perception as well. So I invite everybody to stand on our heads for the rest of the conversation.
I'm still processing the last line in the Mary Oliver poem about if I invite you to go on a hike with me, it must mean I really love you. And I've been processing it in a way along with Eleanor's compassion, thinking about, you know, why isn't it that you wouldn't want everybody with you on that hike? What can bring it? What can bring our way of relating to each other so that everyone would be invited on a hike with nature? Because there would be such a preciousness about being connected and being in solitude but connected. I don't know, some of those sorts of things that I think are hard to articulate, but we're all, especially as creative artists, trying to bring forward into the world for healing and just for the planet to be more respectful and compassionate. And, you know, I don't know, just those sorts of things are kind of tumbling around from some of the poetry and both presentations kind of synchronizing for me.
Yes, thanks, Larry. Really, that's so important. I really have been, I think the ABC, the connections, I'm really grateful for the group, for the connections. And when I speak about embodiment, it's co-embodiment, it's creativity, co-creativity. This is about creations. And I really resonated with Vivian coming from the part of attachment and the longing, and the deep longing, really, that is the most, the yearning. That is the most, I think in my practice and with students and in myself, that's the most strong, the loneliness and yearning, that's the very basic, and that we need to, you know, opening our hearts, that it has been, speaking from nature, uprooting. We have been uprooted. Okay, uprooted from, it's not just disruption, because uprooting breaks up our world, snatches us from places, snatches, you know, from the family of things, and talking about Mary Oliver. So, and really our whole existence has been questioned. So that part, and I was thinking, following Larry, about you do not have to be good. I think that's very important in the context of therapists really wanting to love all, fix all, know all. Those are some of our barriers, and so I'm reading it. You know, you do not have to walk on. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and now we'll tell you mine. Shared humanity, co-suffering. We said compassion. You tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Apparently, it doesn't feel that way, but it does. And the wild geese, I'm skipping, you know, are heading home again, and we so often feel that, you know, we're in our own homes, but we're out of our home. We feel homeless. We feel exiles in our own homes. Exiles, yes. Mm-hmm. So whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh, very harsh, exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Mary Oliver.
So the fact that something that's so important that you've all said, I just want to combine two things, is the compassion is, we have such a tendency to say, it's going to get better, don't worry, or I'll fix you, or positive thinking, or all that kind of thing. That compassion really means being with you in the suffering. That Eleanor, you said, don't turn away from it. You and I have talked about a fix for compassion fatigue is not just have a good diet, get exercise, self-care, all those things. It's really coming back to our own feelings of the benefit we get from sharing with others, of saying you're not alone, and how important that is, and not pretending that things are good or getting better. And it takes courage to do that, to say I'm with you. And the other part of it that I think came out today for me is that it's not just in words. You know, we don't know what to say to people, but just being with them, just walking in the woods in silence, which is very rare, to find somebody who can think of a relationship as not necessarily being about words or saying the right thing. We never know what words to say anyway, but just being with each other, and not to underestimate how important that is.
I'd like to make one more point in relationship about co-regulation. And very often we talk about co-regulation as the human-human, I-thou relationship. Co-regulation, of course, can happen with creatures. Co-regulation can happen with living beings. And I think part of our estrangement as urban creatures these days from the natural world is that separating out of what we call nature, or what we think of as relationship, is not just human-to-human relationship. We are co-regulated by this larger body. And for me, that's what's really essential, as Eleanor knows so well in terms of leading groups outside, is how do we then begin to let ourselves merge with the environment, respond to the environment, and in a sense be nourished in that relationship. So I just want to highlight that. And I understand sometimes I speak from male privilege when I talk about going out into the environment alone. That I know that very often if I go into the wilderness by myself and I come across a woman in the wilderness by herself, I'm always quite impressed, because I realize it's not often. So very often for my female students, I really encourage them, if you go out into the wilderness and go out into nature, go with at least one or two other people so that you can sink into the safety of yourself in the environment, knowing that you have support around you. So that for me feels really important to name, and because I think it's a rare opportunity to experience the wild and feel safe.
You know, we have only a few minutes. I'm just wondering, I see a few people who haven't spoken yet. You want to grab a moment and share what you might take away from this hour together? Patricia from Madrid.
I live next to a golf course, and I enjoy so much nature. I live in Madrid, nearby Madrid, 10 kilometers just away. And I always look at the birds, and I try to be in touch with all the nature when I walk my dog, and try to help my patients to stay grounded and be in touch with such a beautiful planet we have and how we are all connected, plus through the 4 elements, earth. We forget that we're all connected, right? It's amazing, Elaine, that it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and here is about, I don't know, 7 o'clock afternoon, almost evening, and Marilyn is 1 hour late, right? So it's 8 o'clock at night, in the evening. It helps to bring us hope when I try to explain my patients that we humans have this brain that help us think, and sometimes we think that our thoughts are 100% real, and it's not. And when we watch the nature and animals and see how they behave, makes us wonder how could we do this change? Like, how can we live without torturing ourselves with bad experiences? Of course, there are, people with trauma that it's not the same thing. Re-experiencing is not a thought. It's a terrible symptom. And you can hardly manage to cope with it by yourself. There are, of course, you learn from your trauma patients a lot. But in general, as we human beings, we are trapped by our thoughts, and nature gives us the grounding. So it's been so beautiful to have seen you and heard your presentations, and gave me a lot of peace and hope. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patricia. Brittany, you want to say anything since you sort of started us?
Yeah, I mean, to wrap up, if you haven't already and you're watching this live or you're watching it after the fact, if you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook, but we also are on Twitter and Instagram, and the handle is @COVIDIPV. We post a lot of really awesome stuff throughout the week that goes along with our roundtables. You can watch our roundtables, but also just even more resources to handle navigating the pandemic.
So as I understand it, both Facebook links for both of our groups, that is the IPV group, which is interpersonal violence, and ours is the whole person, what do we call it? Whole person, international whole person approaches. That Facebook link. So between those two, they've archived all these presentations and roundtables. So you can go back anytime. I don't know if we have the chat and the resources in there, but a lot of follow-up information is there if you want to follow up on anything. So we will then see you all next week, same time, same Zoom, same link.
Oh, new link.
for healing. Have a good week. Eleanor, Jamie, any last words?
I wanted to add also, I just got earlier on a basket, I think with a lot of I think compassion fatigue and regeneration is not just the responsibility of the individual. I want to bring in as a part of, I work in university and teach in clinic. So the hospital, and this is an organization, this is not the hospital, but we got for Family Day, we got a whole basket of dates and nuts and all this. And I think, that's so heartwarming that people care for you when you're in lockdown and when, that is so important in promoting the regeneration, setting the conditions. And I think it is all our responsibility as teachers, as part of programs to provide that support and compassionate care at all levels. Thank you.
Dates from nature. Thanks. Jamie, last word.
I want to bring in Amaryllis that was given to me 4 years ago from my late departed friend Francine Shapiro. And what was stunning to me is that it bloomed just today for our gathering.
Wow.
And it reminded me of Francine and how important it is that even in your own home, you can have plants that you witness and nurture and remind you of the cycles, the larger drama of life and its seasons. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you, Francine, and may her work ripple out into the world as I know it has done. And I miss her very much. So.
Have a good week. Have a rejuvenating week. See you next week. Good night, good morning, wherever you are. See you. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.